Hey guys, tonight we're plunging into a life you probably haven't fantasized about, but should. You're stepping into the fur-lined boots of a Viking Shieldmaiden. The snow crunches under your feet, the wind smells like salted fish and wood smoke, and somewhere behind you, someone's yelling in Old Norse about who stole the last bone spoon. Your longhouse isn't much: timber walls, a roof that leaks in the spring, and a floor suspiciously full of straw and mystery smells. You wake up on a lumpy straw mattress, wrapped in rough-spun wool, with a whiff of damp dog fur and campfire ash in your nose. You're not a queen or even a village chief. You're just you. Strong, determined, a little sore from sleeping on your side wrong. Outside, it's still half dark. In the Norse world, the sun can't be bothered to rise properly for half the year. You slip on your tunic, your woolen dress, your belt with a handy knife, and, yes, socks inside your leather shoes, because frostbite is not a vibe. Someone once tried using seal fat as a toe warmer. It worked. It also made their boots smell like dead sushi for a month. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where and when you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you hear in the morning isn't birds. It's Bjorn, the neighbor, coughing like he's trying to summon Thor himself. You shuffle outside and realize you forgot to break the ice layer in the water bucket last night. Again, good luck brushing your teeth with that frozen ladle. You head toward the communal longhouse for morning gruel. It's oats, probably, or barley, or something that last night's meat spoiled in. But it's warm and it sits in your stomach like a well-behaved stone, which is all you ask at this point. The other Shieldmaidens nod at you, tired and cranky, hair braided, but faces still pillow-squished. You're all part of a sort of informal militia. It's not like someone hands you a badge or a helmet. If you can hold a shield and shout convincingly, you're in. You train. You raid. You get sunburned from snow glare. Today's job? Firewood. Everything needs firewood. Cooking, heating, smithing. If firewood ever becomes currency, you'd be a millionaire. So you and two others head to the forest with axes that weigh more than your ex-boyfriend's ego. You chop. You drag. You try not to slip on pine needles. It's less a montage and more a sequence of muttered curses and moss-related injuries. By mid-morning, the snow's softened just enough to become slippery instead of just painful. You slip twice, but catch yourself on a pine stump, pretending it was intentional. Historians still argue whether Shieldmaidens trained year-round or only in seasons of war, but your arms argue year-round. Back in the village, a young boy runs past with a chicken under one arm and a smug grin. You have no idea where he got it. You're not asking. There are some questions Shieldmaidens do not waste energy on. After chores, it's sparring time. The clink of metal on metal echoes around the training yard. You pick up your round shield. It's got a new dent from yesterday's clash, and a practice sword, which is just a heavy stick, really. You face your opponent, a girl named Astrid who looks like she drinks molten iron for breakfast. Fantastic. She lunges, you deflect, you grunt. It's not exactly poetic combat. It's more like controlled flailing. You get in one solid knock to her ribs, and she gives you a nod of respect. Or maybe it's indigestion. Either way, it counts. Lunchtime is more fish. There's always fish. Smoked fish. Dried fish. Fish stew. The Norse diet is a love letter to the sea, and not always a flattering one. You eat on a bench, spoon clinking against your wooden bowl, listening to two elders argue over whether Loki once turned into a mare or just dressed like one. You'd laugh if your mouth weren't full. By afternoon, you help patch a sail for the village's longship. The fabric is thick and heavy, and the needle you use could double as a weapon. In fact, you keep thinking about using it on the guy next to you who won't stop humming the same 3 bars of a sea shanty. Over and over. Still, the ship is beautiful carved dragon prow, sturdy ribs of oak, smelling like tar and cold salt. You trail your fingers along its edge and feel something oddly peaceful. This vessel will take you places. Probably dangerous ones, but still places. As the sun begins its slow descent into the horizon, more like a slide, really, since it barely got up, people gather near the hearths again. Tonight, a skald is telling stories. You lean against the wall, warm cup of honeyed mead in your hand, watching flames dance in the fire pit while the tails spin around you like soft wool. One story is about a shield maiden who slayed 5 men with 1 arrow. Sounds fake, but okay. Another is about the Norns, the Norse fates, weaving everyone's future from golden threads. You hope yours doesn't involve splinters or frostbite. You don't have a journal. You don't even have paper. But if you did, today's entry would read, chopped wood, bruised ribs, fish again. Astrid nearly broke my kneecap. Longship looks ready. The sky was pink at sunset. I'm sore. I'm proud. I'm alive. And with that, you trudge back to your sleeping mat. Someone's goat has snuck inside and is chewing on someone else's cloak. Again, not your problem. You wrap yourself in your blankets, muscles aching, stomach full, and listen to the low, familiar sounds of the village falling asleep. Tomorrow, it begins again. But for now, your eyelids grow heavy. You wake to the sound of shouting, again. This time, it's your training instructor, old Sigrun, whose voice has the power to startle birds out of trees and shame-grown warriors into double-checking their sword grips. She's been at this longer than anyone, and rumor has it she once beat a berserker unconscious with just her shield. She denies it, but with a smirk. You roll off your straw mattress and stretch, only to feel every single muscle file a complaint. Your shoulders, arms, legs, even your eyebrows feel sore. That's what you get for volunteering to spar against Astrid twice yesterday. Or maybe it was the wood chopping, or the sled hauling, or possibly the fish stew, which seemed to fight back around midnight. Outside, it's still gray. The sun barely peeks over the horizon like it's also had enough of this life. You wolf down a hunk of rye bread and a mug of watered-down mead and shuffle to the practice field, clutching your gear. Shield, check. Practice sword, check. Deep existential dread, also check. Training isn't glamorous. You don't leap through the air in slow motion or shout cool one-liners. Mostly, it's repetition. You swing. You block. You trip. You get up. You swing again. Your opponent today is a wiry woman named Thyra, who's quick, brutal, and has a smirk that says, I enjoy this more than I should. The two of you circle each other. You lunge. She dodges. She counters. Your shield rattles as her strike hits home. You recover, block her next hit, and grunt as you bring your sword up for a follow-through. Metal clangs against wood, and for a brief moment, you feel the rhythm. Move. Block. Strike. Breathe. Behind you, the instructor bellows instructions. Don't drop your shoulder. Eyes forward. Use your hips. It's like a medieval version of CrossFit, except no one's filming it for their influencer channel. You pause for a water break, except, surprise, it's snow. You scoop it up and chew absent-mindedly while your legs tremble. Somewhere in the background, a new recruit is vomiting from sheer exhaustion. Classic. By midday, Sigrun calls for drills. Shield formations. The famous Viking wall of iron. You and the others line up, shields touching edge to edge, forming an unbroken barrier. Lock elbows, she yells. If you break rank, you're the first to die. Charming. She tests the line by throwing rocks at your heads. Small ones, but still, rocks. You duck instinctively. She scowls. If I were an Anglo-Saxon, you'd be headless. It's hard to argue with that logic. Historians still argue whether Viking shield maidens truly fought in large numbers or if later stories romanticized them. But here, in this grim, sweaty, bruised reality, no one doubts your commitment. You're a warrior. Or, at least, you're desperately trying to be. After formation practice comes the dreaded endurance test, which is just a fancy way of saying, run up that hill with armor on. You curse quietly as you hoist your round shield and start jogging. The hill isn't that tall, but after 5 trips up and down, your legs feel like boiled roots. Still, you make it. Barely. You collapse at the top, panting, cheeks flushed, body steaming in the cold air. You consider just rolling back down and accepting fate. Instead, you close your eyes and imagine Valhalla. Endless feasts. Golden halls. No more blisters. Then Thyra jogs past, barely winded. You make a mental note to hide her socks later. Afternoon training winds down with archery. Finally, something quiet. You grip the bow, draw back, and release. The arrow flies and thunks into a tree 2 feet to the left of the target. Not great. You try again. This one lands slightly closer. Progress. Someone next to you whispers that one of the elder shield maidens used to shoot blindfolded. You believe it, because it's more fun than doubting. Your instructor mutters, "At least you didn't hit a chicken this time." You glance around, and sure enough, there's a chicken watching you judgmentally from a fence post. It knows. By evening, your arms feel like wet rope. Every movement is an effort. You soak your hands in a bucket of warm herb water, a trick passed down to ease the swelling. The scent of mint and mugwort fills the air, oddly soothing. Dinner tonight is thick stew with chunks of root vegetables and, yes, more fish. You sit with your training group around the fire. No one talks much. You're all too tired. Someone occasionally groans. One girl tries to pick a splinter from her palm with her teeth. This is peak warrior elegance. Later, you oil your weapons with seal fat and wrap your sword hilt in fresh leather. Maintenance matters. A rusty blade might as well be a butter knife. You remember the story of Gudrun, the warrior who sharpened her axe so well it split her enemy's helmet and skull in one blow. Of course, that story also says she was 9 feet tall, so grain of salt. You lie on your mat again, this time with a dull ache behind your eyes. Your tunic is stiff with sweat and training dirt. You don't bother changing. You barely have the energy to blink. But before you drift off, you hear Sigrin's voice outside, telling one of the younger recruits, strength isn't just in the arms. It's in the heart, in the stubbornness. You smile in the dark. That part, at least, you have in spades. The wind howls gently against the longhouse walls. Somewhere outside, a dog barks once and is quiet. The fire dies down. Your muscles twitch in your sleep, still remembering the rhythm of battle stances. Tomorrow, you'll train again. You'll ache again. You'll rise again. Your stomach growls before you even open your eyes. The familiar pangs of early morning Viking hunger have arrived, and you're already praying today's breakfast involves less fish. You stretch, slowly, wincing at the lingering stiffness in your shoulders from yesterday's hill sprints and shield wall drills. It feels like you were trampled by an ox, then politely asked to get up and do it again. Outside, the cold air hits you like a sarcastic slap. You shuffle toward the communal longhouse kitchen, which is less of a kitchen and more of a smoky corner with a massive pot and 3 perpetually irritated women who somehow always smell like onions. One of them hands you a bowl of steaming fish stew, thick with barley and turnips. You give her a look. She gives you one back that says, "You want to cook? Be my guest." You eat the stew. As you chew through the warm, gritty mix, you look around. Shieldmaidens, blacksmiths, traders, children, and grumpy elders all mingle in the shared meal space. It smells like burning wood, fish skin, and damp fur, truly, a Viking aromatherapy session. You find a spot near the fire, settle in, and try to enjoy the crust of bread that comes with your stew. It's dense enough to double as a self-defense weapon. Someone claims it once cracked a guy's tooth. He wasn't mad, just impressed. Today's duties are domestic, which doesn't mean restful. You've been assigned to the food crew. That means preparing, cooking, and possibly wrestling ingredients into submission. You start with the fish, naturally. It always starts with fish. You and 2 others, Brynja and Helga, carry a woven basket down to the dock, where the morning catch waits, still flopping in a half-frozen net. You gut them one by one, your hands going numb despite your thick gloves. The gulls squawk overhead, and one particularly bold bird tries to steal a fish right out of Brynja's hand. She hisses at it like a cat. The gull stares, unbothered. This is a daily feud. Historians still argue whether shield maidens were required to participate in food prep or if that was left to others in the community. But here, everyone pulls their weight, unless they want to pull their weight out of the stew pot. Just kidding. Mostly. Next up, flatbread. It's made from rye flour and water and tastes like dry ambition. You mix the dough in a big wooden trough, then roll it flat with a carved bone pin. Brynja hums while flipping the discs onto a hot stone. Helga jokes that hers look like misshapen shields. Yours are so uneven they might count as early art. Still, the bread bakes. The edge is crisp. The smell, shockingly, makes your stomach growl again. Even the gulls hover, curious. You brush the ash off a finished piece and sneak a bite. It tastes like survival. And burnt grain. But mostly survival. While the bread bakes and the fish smokes over a small fire pit, you help churn goat's milk into butter using a barrel churn. It takes forever. You take turns. Everyone complains. The rhythm is hypnotic, though, and you start to zone out, until Helga drops the lid and splashes milk on your boots. She snickers. You mutter something about revenge by dinner. By mid-afternoon, the cooking team transitions into the less glamorous part, cleaning. Everything smells like smoke, brine, and slightly spoiled onions. You scrub wooden bowls with gritty sand, rinse knives in icy water, and debate whether a certain pot is beyond saving. You vote yes. The pot disagrees. A few kids run by, giggling and throwing stale bread crusts at each other. One of them pelts you square in the back. You whip around, and he yells, "Sorry, Shieldmaiden," before sprinting off. You let it slide, mostly because your arms are too tired to chase him. Once everything's prepped and cleaned, the meal is served to the rest of the village. You watch as warriors, smiths, and skalds gather around to eat what you and the others spend hours preparing. No one says thank you, but they don't complain either, which in Viking terms is a thank you. You finally get your own bowl and sit down near the hearth. The stew is richer this time, thanks to Helga's secret spice, which she refuses to name. You suspect it might be garlic or crushed pine needles. Hard to tell. Someone starts up a quiet tune on a bone flute, and another joins with a hand drum made from stretched deer hide. The music is simple, haunting, beautiful. You close your eyes and feel the notes wrap around you like a second cloak. A visiting trader sits down beside you. He smells like seawater and stale mead and tells you about a southern village where they make bread without fish oil. You stare at him like he's describing magic. He winks. You should visit sometime. You chuckle. Sure. Right after you conquer half the coastline and retire. As night falls, you gather your small personal kit, a whetstone for your blade, a carved comb made of bone, and a needle and thread for mending your tunic. Everything in your life requires maintenance, yourself included. You take a moment to braid your hair. Viking braids aren't just fashion. They keep it tidy under your helmet and make you look intimidating, especially with bits of leather or beads woven in. You finish your plate and check your reflection in a polished metal plate. Fierce enough. Sleepy, but fierce. Before bed, you step outside to breathe in the night air. The stars are out, bright pinpricks in the black sky. You whisper a quick prayer to Freya, not for glory or battle, just for fewer chores tomorrow. A gust of cold wind bites your cheeks. You pull your cloak tighter and head inside. The fire's down to glowing coals. You find your spot on the floor, curl up, and tug your blanket over your shoulders. Fish again tomorrow. You sigh, but you smile too. Morning comes, as it always does, with a deep ache in your spine and a suspiciously damp corner in your straw bedding. You stretch, yawn, and then remember, today is your first expedition day. It's not a full raid, not yet, you're still too green for that, but a scouting trip along the coast. A test run, really. Just you, a few seasoned warriors, and whatever the sea decides to throw at you. You suit up with care. Your tunic, thick wool leggings, leather boots still stiff from yesterday's wet snow. Over it all, your mail shirt, a hand-me-down that smells faintly of blood and salt. It's heavy, awkward, and oddly comforting, like being hugged by a cranky bear. At your waist, your sword rests in its scabbard, freshly oiled. You sling your shield over your back and join the others at the docks. The longship waits, its curved prow painted with snarling beasts, meant to scare off enemies or sea spirits, depending on who you ask. You board and settle in, gripping your oar. There are no passengers here, everyone rows. Even the loud guy with the fancy beard. You push off, the boat slicing through icy waters with that creaking, rhythmic groan that becomes oddly soothing after a while. You row for hours, muscles burning, hands chafed. The coastline drifts by, cliffs, pine forests, the occasional puff of smoke from a distant homestead. It's both beautiful and lonely. You feel very small and very alive. As you glide over the waves, one of the older Shieldmaidens, Ingrid, tells tales to pass the time. She claims she once speared a shark and ate it raw. You raise an eyebrow. She winks. Biggest sushi you ever saw. The sun peeks through gray clouds, and seabirds wheel above, cawing and gossiping. You half expect them to report your position to rival clans. Seagulls are little snitches. Then something splashes. You stiffen, peering over the side. Just a seal, blinking at you with soulful, judgmental eyes. Some say seals are spirits of drowned warriors. This one just looks bored. Eventually, the ship beaches on a rocky shore. You leap out, boots sinking into wet sand. and help pull the vessel above the tide line. The wind is sharp, the sky brooding, but the landscape is quiet. Today's task: investigate an abandoned fishing outpost said to be taken over by outlaws. Or maybe trolls. Or both. The rumors vary. Historians still argue whether these kinds of scouting parties were routine practice or romanticized later by skalds looking for drama. Based on how tense everyone is, this feels real enough. You move inland in formation, stepping carefully over roots and frost-covered stones. The forest is silent, but for the creak of trees. Even your breath seems too loud. Then you spot it. A cluster of crooked huts, half-collapsed, reeking of smoke and old fish. You raise your shield, heart pounding. But there's no movement. No dogs barking. No shadows in the windows. You creep closer. Inside, the huts are empty. Just overturned barrels, broken nets, and a single half-eaten loaf of bread. Weirdly soft. Recently abandoned. Ingrid mutters, "They knew we were coming." You nod grimly, even though your heart is still hammering in your ears. You circle the area, checking for signs. Broken branches. Footprints. Scorch marks. It looks like someone packed up in a hurry. You don't find enemies, but you do find a forgotten stash, smoke deal, a half-keg of ale, and a wooden comb carved with runes. You pocket the comb. Maybe it's cursed. Maybe not. But it's pretty, and your hair's a mess. After a full search, your group decides the place is clear. No ambush, no battle. A letdown, but also a relief. You eat some of the eel, which tastes like chewy sadness, and drink a swig of the ale, which tastes like regret and burnt barley. The return journey is quieter. Everyone's lost in thought. You row through choppy waters as the wind picks up. Waves slap the hull, and a few nervous glances pass between rowers. The sea can turn angry faster than a Viking widow. Then, just as the sun begins to sink, it happens. A sudden gust. A sideways wave. The boat tilts dangerously. You grip your oar, trying to balance, but a warrior near the prow loses their footing and goes overboard with a splash. Instantly, chaos. Someone throws a rope. You and another Shieldmaiden anchor it while Ingrid leans over, shouting. Miraculously, the warrior grabs hold. You haul them up, soaked, shivering, but alive. Back on deck, the rescued warrior coughs up a lungful of seawater and grins weakly. "Well," he says, "at least the fish got a good look at me." You laugh, because it's either that or cry. Back at camp, everyone helps unload the ship and dry the supplies. The elders gather to hear your report. You relay the details: no resistance, signs of recent departure, supplies secured. They nod gravely, then immediately ask about the comb. "Is it magical?" one asks. You shrug. It detangles well. That night, as you sit by the fire, legs wrapped in a wool blanket, you reflect on your first scouting mission. No fighting, no glory, but there was danger, and teamwork, and eel. You sip warm mead and listen to the flames crackle. Across from you, Ingrid sharpens her blade while humming off-key. You think about the empty huts, the fast escape, the footprints in the snow. Whoever was there, they'll probably be back. And next time, so will you. The morning air feels heavier today. Not colder, just thicker, as if the sky is holding its breath. You wake with the sense that something is shifting. And you're right. Word spreads fast. The Jarl has summoned all trained warriors to the meeting hall. That includes you now. You tug on your tunic, tighten your belt, and try not to look too eager. It's probably just a drill. Or maybe someone insulted the Jarl's beard again, and now we all have to talk about it. The longhouse is buzzing when you arrive. Warriors of all ages, some still wiping sleep from their eyes, others already armored up and suspiciously awake. The Jarl, towering and always dramatic, stands near the hearth, his wolf fur cloak draped just so. "Trouble to the north," he says. "A border clan's been raiding merchant carts and claiming our land. We ride in 3 days." That's it. No debate. No dramatic storytelling. Just a simple declaration of violence and logistics. Welcome to Viking diplomacy. Your mind races. This is it. Your first real campaign. Not scouting. Not sparring. Actual combat. You try to appear calm, but inside, you're a wild combination of excitement and dread. Outside, everyone is already splitting into squads, checking weapons, and prepping gear. You're assigned to Ingrid's team. Thank Odin. She's loud, tough, and weirdly comforting, like a mother bear who drinks too much. The next few days are a blur of preparation. You sharpen your sword until it hums against the whetstone. You polish your shield, rehearse formation drills, and double-knot every bootlace you own. A broken sandal strap mid-battle would be very on brand for your luck. One afternoon, Brynja insists on painting your shield. Can't go to war with a plain face, she says, dipping a brush into ochre. She paints a snarling wolf. It looks like it's screaming at a tax collector. Perfect. You also prepare your campaign kit, a leather satchel filled with everything a traveling Shieldmaiden might need: dried meat, a spare tunic, fire flint, sewing kit, and your tiny good luck charm, a carved bear tooth gifted by your brother before he sailed west. There's a quiet moment the night before departure. You and a few others sit around a smaller fire, the air thick with wood smoke and anticipation. Someone tells a story about a warrior who went into battle wearing no pants by mistake. Another claims she once defeated a raider by yelling so loudly he dropped his axe. Historians still argue whether such stories are exaggerations or half-truths wrapped in mead-fueled memories. But you all laugh anyway. Then Ingrid gets serious. The first battle, she says, always changes you. Some people talk big beforehand, then freeze. Others go quiet, then fight like wolves. You never know who you'll be until it starts. You nod, not trusting your voice. Your stomach is doing complicated gymnastics. Before dawn, the war party assembles. Horses are saddled, wagons packed. You're on foot, of course. Most Shieldmaidens are. Your boots are tight, your sword strapped, and your heart is hammering loud enough to attract bears. The march begins. Step after step through misty pine forests, over crunchy frost, across the muddy banks of icy rivers. You walk in near silence, the only sounds being footsteps, creaking leather, and the occasional sniffle from someone who probably forgot their fur lining. You pass old standing stones, markers of ancestral battles. Some say you can still hear the echoes of shouting if you press your ear to the stone. You try. All you hear is Brynja whispering. You look ridiculous. You travel for hours, stopping only to eat, stretch, and relieve yourselves in the most undignified manner possible behind shrubbery. You begin to appreciate how unglamorous this whole thing is. No heroic horns. No dramatic slow-motion scenes. Just mud and leg cramps. Eventually, your party makes camp in a clearing. Small fires are lit, and guards take positions while others rest. You help set up the tents, simple wool tarps staked to the ground, and try to find a soft patch of dirt for sleeping. You do not succeed. Dinner is cold boar meat and leftover flatbread. You chew in silence, staring into the flames. Across from you, a young warrior sharpens his axe. His hands are shaking slightly. Yours are too. Later, you get your first real taste of a battlefield ritual. Ingrid gathers a few of you and draws a circle in the dirt. One by one, she asks you to speak your fear. Not to banish it, but to acknowledge it. You admit yours, that you'll freeze up, or worse, fail your friends. She nods. Good. That means you'll fight hard not to. She smears ash on your forehead. Now, go sleep. Or at least pretend to. You lie down, wrapped in your cloak, the ground poking into your ribs. You try to sleep, but your mind keeps rehearsing imaginary battles. What if you forget to block? What if you trip? What if your shield flies out of your hand and hits the Jarl in the face? Eventually, exhaustion wins. You drift off to the sound of wind through trees and the distant, rhythmic clanking of someone hammering out their nerves on a shield rim. You dream of wolves and fire. And of yourself, standing in the middle of it all, unbroken. The sun isn't up yet when you're shaken awake. The air is cold and damp, filled with the scent of wet pine needles and last night's ashes. You groan softly, your joints protesting like an old wooden door, but there's no time to linger. Up, Ingrid whispers, not unkindly. Scouts saw movement near the border village. You're fully alert in seconds. Armor on. Shield strapped. Sword sheathed. Breakfast is a mouthful of cold oats and dried berries, because apparently warriors need fiber too. Then you form up with the others, a silent column moving through the foggy forest like ghosts with really sore knees. It's eerily quiet. Even the birds seem to know something's about to happen. A raven calls once from a branch above you, then vanishes into the mist. Some say ravens are the messengers of Odin. Others say they just enjoy the drama. You approach the village cautiously. It's a small settlement, half a dozen longhouses, a few animal pens, and a rickety watchtower. Smoke drifts from a chimney. There's movement between the buildings, but it's hard to tell who's who. This isn't a full-scale battle. It's a controlled warning, as the Jarl phrased it. A firm reminder that the land belongs to your clan. So you're not here to burn yet. You're here to assert dominance. Which, let's be honest, often turns into burning anyway. Ingrid signals for you to split off and sweep around the rear. You crouch low, your squad creeping through underbrush, past tree roots and startled rabbits. Your breath clouds the air. Your heartbeat thuds in your ears. Then you see them. 3 men, armed, loitering near a shed. They haven't spotted you. They're arguing, one gesturing wildly with a rusted spear. Their voices carry faintly accusations, blame, panic. This is it. First real confrontation. You grip your shield tighter. Your palms are sweating inside your gloves. Why is your nose itchy now, of all times? Ingrid raises her hand, then lowers it sharply. Go. You burst out of cover with a roar that sounds more like a hiccup, but it does the trick. The men startle, 2 drop their weapons, the 3rd bolts. You and your group surround them, swords drawn. No one needs to die, Ingrid says, loud enough for others to hear. But if you're trespassing on our land, there will be consequences. The men mutter defenses. Something about disputed borders, grain taxes, a missing goat. Historians still argue whether these skirmishes were driven by genuine territorial issues or just convenient excuses for pillaging. The truth is probably both. Eventually, one of the men spits at your feet. That's enough. You push him back with your shield, not a strike, just a firm reminder that he's standing on thin ice. He stumbles, then wisely shuts up. Elsewhere in the village, more of your warriors round up armed villagers and take stock. It's a tense standoff, no blood spilled yet, but you can feel it humming just under the surface. Then a shout. Everyone turns toward the central longhouse. A fire, small, contained, but rising. Someone must have panicked and tossed a torch. Because that's always a great solution. A yes. We're surrounded, quick, ignite the food storage. Chaos breaks out. Screaming, smoke, and the dull thud of weapons clashing as discipline breaks like a rotten cartwheel. You charge toward the building, helping form a bucket line from the nearby well. Water sloshes everywhere. One warrior tries to use her helmet as a scoop. Efficient, if ridiculous. You manage to douse the flames before they spread. The building is scorched, but intact. Everyone's coughing, soot-covered, and very irritable. Except Ingrid. She's smiling like she just won a dice game. Eventually, the Jarl's banner is raised above the village center. A show of dominance. The rival clan's forces retreat. No full battle today, just bruises and charred grain sacks. But you stood your ground. You didn't freeze. And that means something. As order returns, the villagers are told to prepare tribute, grain, livestock, and a ceremonial iron brooch that looks suspiciously like the Jarl's missing belt buckle. You gather supplies under the watchful gaze of a bored-looking ox. It farts loudly as you walk past, because dignity is dead. There's a moment of awkward silence as one of your warriors ties the tribute cart with a rope made from braided horsehair. Very eco-conscious, unintentionally fashionable. As your group prepares to march home, Ingrid claps you on the back. You didn't puke. I'm proud of you. You smile, trying not to let the adrenaline keep your knees shaking. The return march is slow, heavy with exhaustion. Everyone is filthy, bruised, and already retelling their versions of what happened. One claims to have fought off 6 men. You remember him tripping over a chicken. Neither version is quite accurate, but that's how legends are born. That night, back at camp, you wash in the river, scrubbing off ash and sweat. The water is bone-chilling, but it feels like washing off fear too. You look at your reflection in the surface. Still you, but something's changed. Back in the longhouse, the war party is greeted with cheers and warm mead. Songs are sung badly, and exaggerated retellings blossom like weeds. One warrior acts out how he single-handedly captured the enemy chieftain, though everyone knows the chieftain wasn't even there. You sit by the fire, your shield beside you, and let the warmth sink into your bones. Ingrid falls asleep mid-mead, snoring like a bear in a thunderstorm. Rinja starts knitting a new headband with the quiet intensity of someone who's seen too much. And you? You just listen to the crackle of flames and think, this is what it means to be part of a war band. Not just the fighting, but the surviving. The long walks. The cold meals. The awkward silences. the laughter after near disasters, the bruises that bloom into stories. And somewhere inside you, you begin to feel it. Not pride exactly, but belonging. The village smells different when you return. Smoke still clings to your clothes, and your boots are crusted with mud, but even through that, you catch the scent of home, hearth fires, pine pitch, drying fish. Familiar and oddly comforting, like an old blanket that smells slightly of goat. As you pass the gates, people glance up. Some nod. A few grin and raise a hand in greeting. And one old woman mutters something about how Shieldmaidens these days don't braid their hair properly anymore. You smile and keep walking. Back at the longhouse, your gear comes off piece by piece. Cloak, shield, sword belt, tunic, boots. Everything feels heavier now, not just from the grime, but from the weight of actual experience. There's a difference between a sword that's been carried and one that's been used. You sit down and inspect your shield. There's a gouge across the wolf's snarl, shallow, but new. You trace it with a fingertip. A small scar. Your first. The first of many, if you're lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. Over the next few days, life settles into a kind of slow routine. You help sort supplies from the campaign, return borrowed gear, and give your armor a much-needed oiling. Ingrid insists on a full inspection of every item you carried. She picks up your travel cloak, sniffs it, and recoils. Did you sleep in this? Only every night, you reply. Disgraceful. You're becoming one of us. You roll your eyes, but part of you is relieved. You made it through your first real mission without freezing, falling, or accidentally setting fire to your own camp. The bar is low, and you've proudly stepped over it. Soon, it's time to rejoin training. Apparently, a battle doesn't mean you get time off. If anything, it makes the drills more intense. Because now you have real flaws to fix. You flinch slightly when you hear the clash of shields. Your stance wavers after long marches. You lean too far left when parrying. Ingrid notices everything. One afternoon, during spear practice, she pulls you aside. You did well, she says. But you're leading with your fear hand. My what? Your left foot steps before your decision does. You move like you're already bracing for pain. You blink. I didn't realize. Exactly. Fix it. She walks away like she's just handed you a recipe for stew. You spend the next week obsessing over your stance. Every movement becomes hyper-aware. You walk around the village practicing balance. People begin to avoid you. In between drills, you take on odd chores, hauling water, mending tunics, scraping dried wax from shield edges. It's humbling, but oddly meditative. Your muscles ache constantly, but it's the kind of ache that feels like progress. And then, unexpectedly, there's a festival. Not for you specifically. Just a seasonal harvest thing. But still, food, music, and a temporary truce on all sparring-related bruises. The village square is dressed up in garlands of dried herbs and sun-bleached ribbons. Tables groan under the weight of flatbreads, smoked fish, roasted turnips, and honey-glazed root cakes that practically vanish the second they're set down. You eat 3 before realizing one was intended for the Jarl's niece. Oops. There's music, of course. A 2-string lyre and a hollow drum, played with the kind of enthusiasm that makes up for the utter lack of tuning. People dance. Children hurl handfuls of flour at each other and pretend to be berserkers. And you? You're pulled into a slow turning circle of warriors, hands joined, feet moving in rhythm. It's not graceful. There are definitely elbows involved. But it's joyful in that raw, simple way that happens when no one's trying too hard. Later, you find yourself sitting by the fire again, this time with a cup of warm honey wine. It's a rare moment of calm. Ingrid sits beside you, chewing dried apple slices with the intensity of someone interrogating them. She gestures at the festival. This, she says, is the real reason we fight. You raise an eyebrow. For root cakes. For all of it. Food. Fire. Songs. Kids covered in flour. That feeling in your chest when you see someone smile and know it's because they're safe. You look around. She's right. The battle was intense. The drills are brutal. But here, in this flickering warmth, surrounded by your people and your aching limbs and your half-laughed stories, you realize why it matters. You're not just surviving anymore. You're protecting something. Something ordinary. Something precious. Historians still debate whether Viking Shieldmaidens were common or rare, mythologized or misunderstood. But sitting here now, a smear of honey on your sleeve and a fire crackling nearby, You don't care what scrolls or scholars think. You're here. You fought. You bled. You danced with sticky boots and a lopsided grin. You're a Shieldmaiden. Not just in name, but in practice. And you're just getting started. You wake up with flour in your hair and an apple core stuck to your cheek. The festival's over, and someone, probably Brinja, stuffed you into a corner of the longhouse like an abandoned cloak. Your back aches, your mouth tastes like dried turnips, and your brain's still echoing with badly tuned lyre music. You stretch, groaning like a floorboard, and head outside. The sky is a lazy gray, low clouds dragging their bellies across the treetops. The party's gone, but its aftermath is everywhere: crushed herb garlands, a half-burned log still smoldering, and 3 chickens wandering around like they've just survived something deeply confusing. After festivals come the chores, and the chores come hard. Everyone's moving slower today. Even Ingrid. She's walking stiffly, muttering about festival joints as she swings a bucket over her shoulder. You're assigned to morning watch duty, boring, thankless, and absolutely freezing. You perch on a wooden platform overlooking the northern path, wrapped in your cloak and silently praying something exciting, but not too exciting, happens. Instead, you get a crow. It lands beside you, stares with unsettling intelligence, and then promptly poops on your boot before flapping off. Classic omen. Time passes slowly. Your breath fogs. Your legs go numb. You spend an embarrassing amount of time composing a battle ballad about soup. It's not good. Eventually, movement. A rider on the path, alone, cloaked, and traveling fast. You signal the guards, just like you're supposed to. Turns out it's a messenger from a neighboring village. Trouble. A coastal outpost has gone silent. Now, you've never been to the coast, but you've heard the stories. High winds, biting salt air, fishing boats that vanish overnight, and eel pies that taste like sadness. But more importantly, it's a trade hub, small, but essential. If it's been attacked, your village needs to respond. So a new mission is formed. Not a full war party this time, just a scout team. You, Ingrid, Brinja, and a few others. It's a long trek through pine forest and stony hills. Rain falls in sheets. Your boots squelch. At one point, your entire left leg disappears into mud, and Ingrid refuses to help you until you stop swearing at the bog. By the time you reach the coast, you're soaked, grumpy, and strongly considering giving up on land entirely to live as a seabird. But the village is worse. Empty. No signs of fire or struggle. Just silence. Fishing nets hang untouched. Bread loaves sit half-eaten on wooden plates. A stew pot still simmers faintly over dying embers. The kind of eerie stillness that makes your skin itch. You search building by building. Nothing. No people, no bodies, no blood. Just gone. Historians still argue whether such disappearances were due to enemy raids, disease, or even mass migration spurred by sudden famine or superstition. But right now, staring at an overturned stool and a row of abandoned boots, none of those answers feel satisfying. At the shoreline, you find something stranger. Footprints, hundreds of them, all leading to the water. And no return tracks. You kneel, run your fingers over the impressions. They're recent. And there, caught in a pile of driftwood, is a single charm, a small carved pendant of Njord, the sea god. Brinja murmurs, they walked into the sea. You glance at her. You mean they fled by sea. But she shakes her head. No boats missing. No tracks. They walked. No one speaks for a while. Eventually, Ingrid shrugs and says, well, I'm not chasing them into the sea. Which is fair. You gather what you can: food stores, fishing lines, a few weapons, and head back inland, dragging questions like extra baggage. It's a long, heavy walk, made worse by the sound of crashing waves that seem far too eager to chase you inland. On the third night of your return, you camp in a clearing surrounded by pines. The fire sputters in the wind. Everyone's quiet. Even Brinja's not knitting. You sit beside Ingrid, chewing on hard cheese, and finally ask, do you think they're dead? She doesn't answer for a long time. Then, I think they're gone. And that's enough for now. Back home, the village receives your report with uneasy silence. The Jarl frowns, fingers his beard, and mutters something about sea spirits and bad omens. A few people sprinkle salt at their doorways. A group of elders decide it's a good time to host a cleansing ritual that involves singing naked in a steam hut. You politely decline. And just like that, life moves on. Well, sort of. The sea mystery hangs over the village like a wet cloak. Everyone's a little jumpier, especially when gulls call at night. You overhear someone swear that her fish stew tasted possessed. But there's still training, still chores, still life. You're slowly realizing that being a Shieldmaiden isn't just about swords and songs. It's about coping with the weird stuff, too. The mysteries that never get solved. The people who vanish. The fear that creeps in at night when the wind whistles like voices. But you're here, still standing, still training, still moving forward. And maybe, just maybe, that's what courage really is. You've never seen snow fall so quietly. It starts as a whisper, then a flutter, then a thick, white hush that swallows the world. The village transforms overnight, roofs blanketed, paths vanished, the training grounds reduced to a glittering field of white. It's beautiful, until you realize what it means. Winter training. You knew it was coming. Ingrid had mentioned it casually back in the autumn, right after you slipped on a wet log and landed face first in a pile of pine cones. Wait until you're doing that in snow, she'd muttered with a smirk. Now, here it is. The season when everything freezes, including your enthusiasm. The mornings begin in the dark. The sun barely schemes the horizon before retreating again, and training starts before dawn. You're woken by a whistle of cold air through the longhouse and the delightful sensation of putting on boots that froze solid overnight. Outside, your breath steams like a forge. The ground crunches beneath your feet. And Ingrid? She's thriving. Apparently, being half snow herself, she moves like frostbite as a friend. You, on the other hand, spend a lot of time falling. On your backside, mostly. Shield drills become ice skating events. Your legs splay at angles you're pretty sure aren't medically advisable. Brynja laughs so hard she forgets to parry and takes a gentle thwop from Ingrid's training spear. Balance, Ingrid says, handing you a bruised pride. It's not just for the elegant. There's a new kind of discipline in winter drills. Fewer flashy moves, more endurance. You practice holding stances in deep snow, running drills with heavy cloaks, and making quick fires with freezing fingers. Your skin cracks. Your nose runs. Your patience wears thin. And yet, something shifts. Without realizing it, your body starts adapting. Your footing steadies. Your reflexes quicken. You start predicting when someone's going to slip and take advantage. You stop fearing the cold and start moving with it, using the drag of snow to absorb impacts, the crunch underfoot as rhythm for your steps. One morning, you're assigned to hunt. It's you, Brynja, and two older warriors, Halder and Finna, who make everything look easy and chew jerky like it's a sacred ritual. You head into the woods with bows, spears, and thick, itchy furs. It's so quiet, even your heartbeat feels loud. You track deer for hours, following hoof prints through powder, bent branches, faint droppings. Every sound is muffled by snow, every tree coated in frost. Eventually, you spot one, a stag, lean and cautious, watching you from a thicket. Your breath freezes midair. You take the shot. Mississippi barely. The deer bolts. No one scolds you. Finna claps you on the back and says, "Better than my first." I shot a tree. It didn't move. You trudge home with empty hands but full lungs. Something about being out in the wild, part of the season instead of fighting it, calms you. Historians often debate whether Norse Shieldmaidens were primarily warriors or seasonal workers who stepped into arms only when needed. But moments like this suggest both could be true. You fight, you hunt, you help carry wood. Being a Shieldmaiden is about doing what the village needs, whatever that is. Speaking of which, you're soon helping reinforce the roofs. Snow buildup is no joke. Too much, and the beams groan. You and half the village clamber onto roofs with brooms and shovels, tossing snow into the wind and trying not to slip off. Someone starts a contest to see who can create the most artistic snow toss. Brynja wins with something that looks suspiciously like a dragon. Ingrid claims she was trying to make a goose. Back inside, nights are long and quiet. You curl up under wool blankets, nursing your bruises and listening to the wind howl like a homesick ghost. Stories are told in soft voices. One night, Halder shares a tale of a warrior who died in battle and came back as a snow hare to warn his village of raiders. Another night, Brynja invents a saga about your training mishaps. And lo, the mighty Shieldmaiden did slip on her own cloak, fall into a bucket of fish, and emerge victorious, albeit smelly. It's all ridiculous, but warm and comforting. You write runes in the frost on your window, a crooked tiwaz for battle, a wobbly algize for protection. You're not superstitious, but it feels right. One early morning, you wake up to silence even thicker than snow. You dress quickly, expecting the usual frostbite march. Instead, you're told the northern storehouse collapsed. No one hurt, thankfully, but a third of the winter grain is buried and soaked. The Jarl gathers everyone and lays it out plainly. Rationing begins today. Suddenly, every bite matters. Meals shrink. Training slows. Even spirits dim a bit. You offer to patrol further out, see if any nearby villages are willing to trade. Ingrid approves. You set out with a small group, snowshoes strapped awkwardly to your boots, cloak pulled tight. The wind howls. Traveling in snow is like walking through a dream, white, endless, quiet. Occasionally you spot animal tracks. Once, a set of enormous paw prints that make everyone a little tense. You sing loudly for the next hour, just in case it's a bear. Eventually, you reach a neighboring settlement. Smaller than yours, but well supplied. They welcome you in exchange for dried fish, 2 barrels of pickled cabbage, and a carved stone idol that's either decorative or mildly cursed. On the way back, you carry heavy packs and heavier thoughts. This, too, is part of survival. Not just swords and snowfalls, but supply chains, logistics, unexpected negotiations that involve cabbage. When you finally return, your arms ache and your toes are numb. But the village cheers. Someone hands you a hot drink that might be mead or might be boiled birch sap. Either way, it's warm. That night, you lie by the hearth, the glow flickering over your face. You're stronger now, not just with a blade, but in the quieter, colder ways. You've learned how to endure, not in bursts of fire, but long stretches of ice. And that may be the hardest lesson of all. The thaw arrives like a whispered promise. First, it's a gentle drip from icicles, then the steady patter of rain on frozen earth, and finally, the soft mud swallowing your boots with every step. You step outside the longhouse to a world that's both familiar and strangely alien, branches swollen with buds, streams rushing louder than ever, and the sharp, clean smell of melting frost. Spring in the north is a slow awakening. It's muddy, messy, and a little awkward, kind of like you after your first failed spear throw. But it's also full of hope. Training shifts gears again. No more slipping on ice, but mudslides and pollen allergies take their place. You find yourself sneezing at the worst possible moments, which, admittedly, makes shield practice a bit of a comedy show. Ingrid grumbles, "You look like a blooming shrub. Maybe you're part forest now." You retort with a sneeze that sounds suspiciously like a war cry. The village comes alive with activity. Farmers till fields, smiths hammer out new tools, and children chase each other through puddles. You join in the planting, hands in cold, wet earth, fingers numb but heart warm. The rhythm of seasons pulls you forward, steady and sure. One morning, word spreads of a trader passing through, a man named Eirik, known for rare goods and stories from distant lands. You're tasked with escorting him safely to the Jarl's Hall, an honor and a responsibility. Eirik is tall, with a beard flecked in gray and eyes that glint with mischief. He carries a satchel full of strange items, colored glass beads, finely wrought knives, and a small wooden box that rattles softly. As you walk, he tells tales of places you've only heard about in hushed whispers, deserts that burn under a relentless sun, mountains that scrape the sky, and cities where horses never sleep. You listen, fascinated. Some stories sound like fantasy, others like warnings. He speaks of new gods, new weapons, and strange customs that make your village's traditions seem both comforting and stubborn. At night, around the campfire, you watch the stars and wonder how vast the world really is. The constellations look the same, but everything beneath them is changing. Eirik offers you a small glass vial filled with amber liquid. "Mead," he says, "but from far south. Different recipe." You take a cautious sip. It burns warmly and tastes like sunshine and secrets. Later, at the Jarl's Hall, you help unpack the trader's goods. People crowd around the glass beads, admiring their colors. Some eye the knives with suspicion, others with curiosity. The rattling box draws your attention. The Jarl opens it carefully to reveal a small mechanical bird, crafted with intricate metalwork and powered by tiny springs. It chirps and flutters its wings, astonishing everyone. "Magic," someone whispers. Eirik laughs. "No magic, just clever hands." The village buzzes with excitement and skepticism. Some elders grumble about newfangled tricks distracting from true Viking ways. Others see possibilities. Historians still debate how much contact Vikings really had with far-off lands, whether these exchanges were rare or common. But for you, watching the mechanical bird dance, it feels like the world is a little bigger, a little more mysterious than you'd imagined. That night, you lie awake, the soft ticking of the bird echoing in your mind. The seasons turn, the world shifts, and you realize your journey as a shield maiden is just one thread in a vast tapestry. Change is coming, and whether you like it or not, you'll need to be ready. The village wakes to an unfamiliar sound, the clatter of hooves on stone. You blink against the dawn and hear the rhythmic pounding growing louder. Riders approach, dust swirling behind them like ghosts rising from the earth. Your heart skips. A cavalry? A raid? Or something else entirely? It's a delegation from the king's court, clad in polished armor that gleams too brightly for this rustic place. They carry banners emblazoned with strange symbols and faces unknown to you. You watch as they dismount, their boots heavy and confident on the soft earth. The Jarl greets them with a mixture of pride and caution. The village is being pulled into a larger world, a political game with stakes you barely understand. You're drafted to assist as a liaison, a messenger between your people and these outsiders. It feels important and terrifying all at once. Days blur into meetings, feasts, and tense negotiations. The court's representatives speak of alliances, taxes, and military support. They offer gifts, fine fabrics, rare spices, and shiny coins you've never seen. But there's an edge beneath the courtesy, a reminder that this is power wielded with a smile. Training shifts again. Now, you're drilling with new weapons, crossbows, long swords fashioned differently, and armor that clinks and chafes. You fumble with the unfamiliar gear, feeling like a novice all over again. One evening, you watch the northern lights dance across the sky, a shimmering curtain of green and purple. Brynja sits beside you, quiet for once. Change is coming, she says softly. We can fight it, or we can learn to dance with it. You nod, feeling the weight of her words settle like snow on your shoulders. Historians still argue how much Viking society adapted versus resisted outside influence during these times of contact and conquest. But for you, it's clear, survival means flexibility. As the delegation prepares to leave, the Jarl gives you a medallion stamped with the king's seal, a token of trust and a reminder that your world is growing. You tuck it beneath your cloak, a secret warmth against the cold. Later, as the village returns to its rhythm, you realize your role is changing too. Not just a shield maiden, but a bridge between past and future. And you're ready. The long summer days stretch out like golden ribbons. The sun barely dips below the horizon, bathing the village in a soft, endless light. You wake early, greeted by the hum of bees and the scent of wildflowers that blanket the meadows. It's a stark contrast to the biting cold and silence of winter, and it fills you with restless energy. Training becomes less about survival and more about skill. You spar with Brynja under the open sky, shields clashing with satisfying thuds, swords singing in the breeze. Sweat beads on your forehead, mingling with the warmth of the sun. The village thrives. Fields yield grain, and the smell of baking bread drifts through the air. Children splash in the river, their laughter a bright counterpoint to the steady rhythm of daily life. One afternoon, you accompany the Jarl to a nearby festival, a gathering of clans marked by feasting, storytelling, and competitions. It's loud, chaotic, and full of strangers who feel like family. You try your hand at axe throwing. Brynja bets you won't hit the target, and you're determined to prove her wrong. Your first throw sails wide, but the second strikes true, eliciting cheers. Later, you sit by the fire as elders recount tales of gods and heroes, their voices weaving magic under the stars. You feel the weight of history settle around you, comforting and grounding. But amid the revelry, a shadow lurks. Reports arrive of raiders from the south, merciless warriors known for their brutality. The village prepares, sharpening weapons and fortifying defenses. You help mend armor and train new recruits, the festive mood giving way to tense focus. One night, as you patrol the outskirts, you spot flickering torches in the distance. The raiders are coming. Your heart pounds. This is what you've trained for. Fear twists inside you, but it's tempered by resolve. As dawn breaks, the village braces. Shields are raised, arrows knocked, and battle cries swallowed in the heavy morning air. The clash is fierce and chaotic. You move with practiced grace, shield deflecting blows, sword striking true. The mud beneath your feet turns to blood and sweat, but you push on. In the aftermath, the village stands battered but unbroken. You tend wounds and mourn losses, the weight of survival heavy in your chest. Historians still debate the extent of Shieldmaiden's participation in battles, whether they were exceptions or the rule. For you, there's no question, you fought and you lived. As the sun sets, painting the sky in hues of fire, you realize that life is a cycle of light and shadow, joy and pain. And through it all, you endure. The days grow shorter again, the air cooling with a sharp edge. Autumn arrives quietly, like a whispered warning. Leaves turn from green to fire, crunching underfoot as you walk through the forest. The scent of smoke curls from chimneys, mixing with the earthy smell of fallen leaves and ripe apples. It's harvest time, a crucial season when the village rallies together to gather the fruits of months of toil. You help carry heavy baskets, your muscles aching but your spirit steady. The longhouse fills with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the rhythmic pounding of grain. One evening, as the sun dips low, you join the village in a feast celebrating the harvest bounty. There's roasted meat, fresh bread, and sweet mead flowing freely. Stories are told, songs sung, and for a moment, the world feels whole and warm. Yet, beneath the surface, tensions simmer. The recent raid has left scars, both visible and hidden. Some villagers argue over how to prepare for future threats. Others question the Jarl's decisions. The coming winter looms, and with it, uncertainty. You find yourself caught between roles: warrior, laborer, peacemaker. Brynja notices your quiet moments and offers a rare word of encouragement. You carry more than your shield these days. Your training shifts again, focusing on strategy and leadership. You practice coordinating groups, reading the land, and anticipating enemy movements. It's less about brute strength and more about mind and heart. One morning, you discover a strange symbol carved into a tree near the village edge. It's unfamiliar, angular, and precise. The elders debate its meaning, some fearing it's a warning from rivals, others believing it to be a sign from the gods. Historians still argue whether such markings were messages between clans or simple art. For you, it's a reminder that the world is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. As the harvest moon rises, casting silver light over the fields, you stand watch with a sense of calm readiness. The cycles continue, and so must you. The first frost bites into the dawn like a cold reminder that warmth is fleeting. You wake to crisp air that makes your breath plume in quick clouds. The earth hardens overnight, and the once muddy paths are now a brittle crunch beneath your boots. The village shifts again, slowing as the days darken and the need for preservation takes priority. Food stores are checked and double-checked. You help prepare salted fish and smoked meats, the scent mingling with pine and chimney smoke. Every scrap counts. You practice patience, a lesson harder than any battle. One afternoon, while gathering firewood with Brynja, you stumble upon an old burial mound half-hidden by bracken. The earth here is soft and fragrant with decay and moss. Stones arranged in a circle hint at stories long past. You wonder about the person buried there, a warrior, a Shieldmaiden, or someone else. The past seems both close and unreachable, like a faded dream. That night, the village gathers for a solemn ritual to honor ancestors and ask for protection through the cold months. You watch the flickering flames dance in the eyes of elders and young alike. Stories are whispered, some true, some embellished, about battles fought, loved ones lost, and promises made beneath similar skies centuries ago. Ingrid pulls you aside and murmurs, "Remember, our strength is not just in arms, but in memory." Winter training resumes with renewed focus on endurance. You hold stances longer, run drills in heavy clothing, and practice silent movement. Your body aches, but your mind sharpens. The Jarl speaks of increasing raids and the need for vigilance. Scouts report unusual movements in the forest, signs that the threat is not gone but waiting. Historians still debate the role of such rituals, whether they were truly spiritual or a way to strengthen communal bonds. For you, they are both, a pause in the relentless march of days, a moment to breathe and remember. One evening, As snowflakes begin to drift again, you sit by the fire, the glow casting shadows on your tired face. You feel the weight of seasons and stories, of battles fought and peace held precariously. And you know this is only the beginning. Snow settles softly over the village, muffling sound and wrapping the world in a quiet blanket. You trudge through drifts that rise above your boots, the cold biting but familiar. The longhouse feels like a cocoon, a place of warmth, stories, and fleeting comfort against the harsh outside. Winter's grip tightens. Days are short, shadows long, and the promise of spring feels like a distant dream. You train indoors now, practicing precise strikes and defensive maneuvers in the flickering firelight. Outside, the village slows almost to stillness. The river freezes, and the forests hush, save for the occasional crack of ice or distant howl. You spend long evenings crafting, repairing leather straps, sharpening blades, and weaving small tokens of protection. One night, a traveler arrives, a skald with a harp slung across his back and stories that warm the cold air. His songs speak of gods and heroes, distant lands and epic quests. You listen, eyes half closed, as his voice weaves magic into the room. The stories remind you that even in the darkest times, light can be found in words and memories. But the peace is fragile. The Jarl warns of increased raids. Scouts report strange fires on the horizon. The village prepares once more. You train the young warriors, sharing your hard-earned skills and lessons. They look to you with wide eyes, hungry for knowledge and hope. Historians still debate how much Shieldmaidens influenced Viking warfare, whether their legend was myth or reality. For you, every day lived is proof enough. As snowflakes swirl outside, you feel a fierce pride. You are a Shieldmaiden, not just in battle but in spirit. Winter will pass, as it always does, and you will be ready. The foe returns, tentative and slow. The ice cracks and drips, streams swell, and the world breathes again. Mud clings stubbornly to your boots, and the scent of wet earth and new growth fills the air. You shake off winter's weight and step into spring's uncertain light. Your training adapts once more. Balance on slippery rocks, quick strikes before frost returns, and lessons in reading the land's subtle shifts. You practice patience, knowing the cycles repeat, but never exactly the same. News comes of distant battles and shifting alliances. The world beyond your village is restless, and you feel the pull of something larger, a call to venture beyond familiar woods and fields. One day, the Jarl offers you a chance to join a trading expedition. It's risky but full of promise. New lands, new people, new stories. You hesitate. The shield you carry is heavy, but so is your curiosity. Brynja nudges you gently. Sometimes, to protect what we love, we have to see the world as it is. You nod, a mixture of excitement and apprehension swelling inside you. Historians still debate how often Vikings traveled and traded versus raided, but there's no doubt that exploration shaped your people's story. You prepare for departure, packing carefully, checking weapons, and saying quiet goodbyes. As you stand at the village edge, the sun setting behind familiar trees, you take a deep breath. The journey ahead is unknown, but your spirit is steady. The Shieldmaiden steps forward. The road stretches out, winding through forests and hills, under skies that shift from bright to brooding. Your footsteps fall in rhythm with the creak of cartwheels and the chatter of companions, farmers, traders, warriors, each carrying their own hopes and fears. The air smells of pine, dust, and distant fires. Days blur together, setting up camp, mending gear, sharing meals around crackling fires. Nights are cold and filled with unfamiliar sounds, owl hoots, rustling leaves, the occasional howl that makes your heart skip. You learn to read the stars again, but now they guide you through unknown lands. You watch how different peoples live, their customs, clothes, foods. Some welcome you warmly, others eye your weapons with suspicion. At a bustling coastal town, you see ships unlike any you've known, sleek, with sails patched in bright colors. The smell of salt and fish fills the air. You barter beads for dried fish and trade stories with sailors who speak in strange tongues. One evening, as you rest on a rocky shore, a storyteller shares a tale of a Shieldmaiden who sailed beyond the horizon to find new worlds. The story feels both like myth and a whisper of your own future. Your hands ache from travel, your body craves the steady routine of the village, yet your spirit is ignited by the unknown. Historians still argue about the extent of Viking voyages. Whether tales of distant lands like Vinland were fact or fancy, but your journey proves that the world was always bigger than the fireside stories. As you gaze across the dark waters, you feel both small and limitless. The Shieldmaiden's path is no longer just home. It's everywhere. You find yourself standing at a crossroads between who you were and who you are becoming. The village is a memory behind you now, its longhouse fires flickering in your mind's eye. Ahead, the horizon stretches wide and unknown, a canvas waiting for the next chapter. Your body is worn but strong, shaped by years of training, battle, and survival. Your mind carries stories, lessons, and dreams. You've learned that strength is not just in the shield or sword, but in adaptability, courage, and connection. The world is changing, as it always does. New threats, new alliances, new possibilities. Historians still debate how much the Shieldmaidens truly shaped Viking history or whether their legend has grown beyond the facts. But for you, the legend is real in every step you take and every choice you make. As you prepare to settle into this new phase of your life, whether it's returning home, forging new paths, or becoming a story told by others, you carry the spirit of your people within you. The wind whispers through the trees, soft and steady. You close your eyes and breathe it in, the scent of pine, earth, and endless possibility. The shield is still in your hand, a constant companion. And with it, you face whatever comes next. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The night deepens, and your breath slows, matching the gentle rhythm of the world around you. The forest, the village, the wide-open seas, they all settle into quiet rest, just as you do. Imagine the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the faint crackle of embers fading low. You've traveled far, through seasons and stories, feeling the chill of winter and the warmth of summer sun. Each step, each moment, carried you forward, sometimes with fear, sometimes with joy, but always with an unyielding heart. Now, let that heart slow. Feel the weight of your shield lessen, the tension in your muscles melt away. You are safe here, in this quiet space between dreams and waking. The world waits for you, always changing, always calling. But for tonight, rest is your companion. Soft, steady, and patient. Let your mind drift, like clouds over ancient hills, like waves lapping gentle shores. There is no need to hurry or struggle, just be. You are part of a story much larger than yourself, a thread woven into the tapestry of time. And as you close your eyes, know that the spirit of the Shieldmaiden walks beside you, strong, calm, and forever brave. Good night.